Welcome. Thank you for joining us today and sharing an hour of your day or your evening with us. Before we begin our program, I have asked each of our speakers to lead us in prayer. Munira, would you offer a prayer for us?
Yes, Marita. Okay, I'm beginning. In the name of Allah, most gracious, most merciful. Our Lord, give us in this world that which is good, and in the hereafter that which is good, and protect us from the punishment of the fire. Amen. Thank you, Marita.
Rosemarie, would you offer a prayer for us?
Loving Creator, as we come together today from so many parts of our earth community, we ask that you bless us with wisdom and strength to follow your spirit of justice. Direct our concerns to the oppressed and the vulnerable, and let us hear their voices and their hopes and their struggles, and then give us courage and strength that we may respond in an effort to restore their human dignity. And as with the women about whom we will hear today, help us to know that even though we do not always see the results of our commitments, we plant seeds that will grow into a garden of peace and justice for all. Amen.
Thank you, Rosemarie. And now I'm going to introduce Munira Faraz. And before I do that, I want to tell you for a moment about our program today. In this era of transition, which we are experiencing today, we need to explore the enormous capacities of women for breaking through and beyond the divisions that exist in our world: cultural, religious, economic, political, environmental, and technological. Today is the last of our 4 bi-monthly series. You can view any of the 3 previous programs on our YouTube channel, which is titled Interfaith Conference Fratelli Tutti. The series Building Human Solidarity, the Voices of Women, brings together women leaders in their field to share their diverse perspectives. Global Ministries University, Tangaza University Institute for Interreligious Dialogue and Islamic Studies, and the Harmony Institute are co-sponsoring this program. These interactive presentations will be explored further with other significant topics of our era in the February 2023 Global Interfaith Conference entitled Walking Together in the Spirit of Laudato Si and Fratelli Tutti, which will be coming to you from 4 international hubs, one in Africa, another in Europe, one in South India, and one from the Americas. Stay tuned for more information. And finally, as certain questions or comments come to you, please put them in the chat or whatever mechanism there is to the right there on your YouTube. And then I will field them to our speakers. So Munira Faraz Mafta is a human rights activist with paralegal training that works with women against radicalization, violence, and extremism. She volunteers with Wasafiri Consultancy, sponsored by Mercy Corps Kenya, an organization that supports youth and women to become peaceful, productive members within their communities through civil engagement, connecting them with employment and entrepreneurial opportunities, and helping them to build life skills. Munira also volunteers with local interfaith NGOs and groups such as Sauti ya Wanawake, also the Supreme Court of Kenya Muslims, the Council of Imams and Preachers of Kenya. She is also a member of the Coast Interfaith Council of Clerics, where she is chair lady of the Women's Desk. And finally, Munira is a member of the Maryknoll Kenyan affiliate chapter, the only interfaith entity in Maryknoll. Ms. Mafta was an active participant of the virtual WARFAE program that discusses strategies for protecting human rights and preventing radicalization. And finally, Ms. Mafta was invited by the U.S. State Bureau of Educational and Cultural Affairs as a representative of Kenya to join 23 other representatives of different countries who came to the United States just a few months ago, and visited 4 cities where they studied and examined issues of dismantling racial and social injustice, which, while they take place in the United States, also take place in other parts of the world. So it's with great pleasure that I introduce Munira Faraz Mafta. Welcome.
Thank you, Marita. Thank you. Hi, everyone. My name is Munira. Today I'm going to present a model that is implemented by an organization called Wasafiri Consulting, an international organization, and that work on tackling complex problems around the world. This was a pilot project, was led by Naomi, a lead consultant, a lecturer, a professor from Netherlands University there. And I'm sharing this model and my experience as lead champion from that program in the pilot project. And through that project, it was, Marita, can you share the
Yes,
slide?
do you want the slides on the, okay, okay. If you keep talking a little bit about the project, I'll bring it in.
Yeah. Okay. This program, we have done it for more than 2 years, and from the different youth, but the last one we did with female. Majority of us, we think that the only people who are suffering in the community are men, the youth men, not the girls. But through this program, we came out and realized that this program was great to women, the girls, who have already lose hope in the community. Their self-esteem is down. They don't have life skills. They don't have anything to depend on. The only thing that they are depending, it's what they have in their society. And this program, by the name, is called Community-Led Research and Action. Community-Led Research Action. This program contains that the community themselves, they have to give solution to their problems, not us to give them the solution to the problem. And through this, we decided to look for the at risk. Why do we call them at risk? These are the youth that They don't have even information of what is going on in the community. Their behavior have already changed. They don't know they are up to, they can't make decision for themselves. And also they can't decide for anything in the community. And the only thing that they depend, it's what they have in the community. And this makes the people not to acknowledge them, not to understand their problem. They don't know their self-identity, their self-belonging. They don't have their value. They don't know their value. And also they are there with themselves. They isolate from the large community, and also they depend on themselves, not depend with anyone in the community. And as I engaged in that program, I was a champion. We had the Wasafiri consultants had facilitators. Those were in charge of the champions and also the program, the way they facilitate the program. But us as the champion, we had the acknowledge and move to go and identify the youth in the community and their problems. We have orphans, we have those who are giving birth out of the wedlock. We have those who don't school dropout. We have those who join in the programs of VE organization, that is violence extremism organization. So through us as champions and them, we call them community researchers, because we need them to give us the information by themselves, not us, and the problems that they're facing. We had a group of 15 girls, and through that, we have to create a safe space for them because they have so many issues and they don't want to speak out. And through that safe space, we acknowledge that we have to have a confidential mechanism that anything that we are talking or we are doing in that community, they have to stay in the same safe space. And through that safe space, we realize there are so many things that they going through, but they're going through as female and also as community. But so many people, because of the culture, they think that we as women, we are supposed to go through those things. For example, issues of gender-based violence, majority of them, they went through those problem of gender-based violence, beating, divorces, early marriage and early divorces, early pregnancy, and no one is taking care of them. So through that program, we acknowledge them and decided to make them to realize their potential and what they can do. We went in that program for 1 year for the girls. And through that, we brought the culture of savings. Majority of our girls, they don't know how to save. They don't have even a single cent. So through the Wasafiri, they help us to give them transport. That transport, we make them to save a little to go and spend at home and a little to save for themselves. And we realized that through this, when they came, they were having a very gloomy face, lack of hope, lack of faith of anything. They just know that that is their end. But through the program, after the graduation, during the graduation, we saw that they have a gloomy face, glowing face, and from glooming to glowing faces. They know how to make decisions for themselves. They know what to do, because this program, it was a self-driven. We make them to talk about their issues, what they went through, and themselves, they're giving us the solution for the program, for their problem. And through this, we decided at around the 8 months of the program to try to connect and to see what kind of things they have as themselves. For example, when they came, they didn't have the self-awareness, who they are, where they are coming from. Their self-belonging was, they don't know anything about their self-identity, their value, everything, it was down, their self-esteem was down. But when we went with them through the program, they realized that they have something for themselves and the community. They can participate in the community. They can be recognized in the community. They can give us solution with what they have as part and parcel of the community. And so through this, we realize that majority of them, they have the talent, others, they have skills of doing things, but the only thing that they miss is the know-how and the skills. But when they realize the self-realization that they can do something for themselves, it's then when we connected them to different places and areas. Some like to do a lot of beauty, making the makeup, cosmetic things with cosmetic. So they went. We took them to we do the referral at the end, and through the referral, they went to others. They went to the salons. Others they went to the. We have, as Muslims, a culture of decorating our hands, the henna. So they went for the training. Others, they went for the baking, and others also, they opened their business, that business which helped them to continue with their life. Those who had children out of the wedlock, at least they can stand, their self-confidence to stand in front of people and make statement and talk about their life from where they're coming and now the changes they have. And also the way they present themselves, the time when we brought them, others, it took time for them to change for dress code and also the way their faces are looking. But after the program, they were good. They can take care of everything and even themselves. So when they reach at the self-actualization, where they really realize that there is need for them to change themselves, their family, and also the community at large. As they say, that goes that when you educate and empower a woman, is like you empower the community and the whole world. It went so in this program. I was very happy with this program because every day I learn and relearn things from them. I'm not only learning from them and also mentoring them, but also learning. This is the last photo that you can see. It's the time when they graduate. As you can see, nowadays they were glowing. They're very happy, and they still continue with their business. And also they continue with what they have. Until now, I direct them, I talk to them, they are coming for counseling to me, and also the mentorship also continue. I have only 4 daughters, but now, as you can see, I have so many daughters and a family for myself. Thank you, Marita.
Thank you so much, Munira.
Wonderful.
Let me stop this sharing.
Yeah.
Wonderful. Okay, and now I have the pleasure of introducing Rosemary Milazzo. Let me begin by reading her bio.
Oh dear.
Rosemary Milazzo was born in 1932 to Italian immigrants, was one of 10 children. She earned a BA in music education at Brooklyn College, and after teaching in New York City public schools, she entered the Maryknoll Sisters congregation in 1959. And she is currently a member of the Maryknoll Sisters. Her first assignment was to Transfiguration School in New York's Chinatown, where she taught and then was appointed principal. She worked in transitioning Transfiguration School from a traditional parochial school to a community school, involving many local people in the life of the school. In the early 70s, she was assigned to East Africa and studied Swahili and began teacher training in a teacher training college in Kenya. So you both have Kenya in your blood. She studied Swahili and continued as a lecturer at the teacher training college for 8 years. She was later assigned to Bura Tana irrigation project in northern Kenya, an initiative set up by the World Bank and the Kenyan government to reclaim the desert. She worked there for 8 years, helping people to settle in, doing literacy work and helping form small Christian communities. As they were landless, homeless people brought to Buratana to work and live there. They were strangers to the desert, strangers to each other, and strangers to the nomadic people who inhabited the desert. In order to help people know one another better, she did group building exercises and communication work. The nomads living in the desert did not know Swahili, the national language at that time. So she taught Swahili there also. After coming back to the Maryknoll Mother House for 4 years, she returned to East Africa, now to Mwanza, Tanzania, where she began an AIDS project in the village, setting up support groups, advocating for people living with HIV/AIDS. She worked with AIDS orphans and set up a school for special needs children. And after returning to the Maryknoll Center, she joined the Christian Peacemaker Teams, an international organization set up to support teams of peace workers in conflict areas around the world. Their aim is to offer organized, nonviolent alternatives to war, what we need so badly now. They do this by using the power of nonviolence in their own lives and in other parts of the world. Rosemary has worked with them in northern Canada, in the Democratic Republic of Congo, Kurdistan, Iraq, and in refugee camps around the world. It's a great honor to have you also here today, Rosemary. Would you share with us your thoughts?
Thank you, Marita. Thank you very much. And Munira, congratulations on that wonderful, inspiring presentation. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you may be. I'm happy to be here with you to share some stories of women who have astonished me, who have challenged me, and have filled me with wonder as I journeyed with them. And I have a sense that most of you have met women who are also amazing. How do we name them? How do we remember them? And can we hear their voices? Or do they remain voiceless? As a Maryknoll sister, I worked in Kenya and in Tanzania for over 30 years. In Tanzania, during the HIV/AIDS pandemic, we had no drugs available to us. Hospitals were overcrowded. Folks were dying. Indeed, there were very few families in the village who weren't dealing with the problem of AIDS in their families. So I met with community members, and together we began the project of support for our AIDS patients. We met, we shared, we reached out, we supported one another, especially those who were struggling alone. We learned reflexology and healing touch, and we spent time together bringing comfort to one another. One year approaching Christmas, I remember the group was lamenting the fact that Gloria would be alone on Christmas Day. No one wanted her to be alone that day. Immediately, Mary put up her hand and said, I will go. I'm alone as well. So we will be together. So now Mary and Gloria were to be together. And when I arrived late in the afternoon of Christmas at Mary's house, I found Mary and Gloria sitting on the bed there. Gloria's hair was all beautifully braided. They had shared a wonderful meal together that Mary had brought, and they were singing Christmas carols. What joy in that room. I joined them for a bit, marveling at what it means to be a friend, to be a sister. Then I left to visit another family. And that next morning, I was awakened by Mary's father, who came to tell me that Mary returned home. And she told them all about the wonderful day they had spent and what they had shared. And then she went to bed. She died in the night. And I thought, what a way to spend your last day on earth. Sharing with a sick friend when you're carrying your own burden. How much soul does it take to reach out to another when you are ready to die yourself? And just this month, we remember the tragedy of September 11th, especially here in New York. I had met this group called Families for Peaceful Tomorrows. They mobilized and met and joined and formed this group after the tragedy, and they did not want us to go to Iraq and bomb Iraq, especially in the name of the people that they had lost. Each of them had lost someone. And so they were very eager to stop the war, to stop the violence. And they met every year, but after 5 years, they decided to extend the group and have a larger group, people from around the world who had lost someone to violence. And now they too were working for peace. The folks came from Japan, China, Chile, Italy, Latin America, and Cambodia, Palestine, etc. And Maryknoll sisters, who have spent many years in most of those countries, were invited to translate for the attendees. I translated for an Italian woman who attended. Anna was only 24 years old, and she was working to defend land rights in southern Italy. In small groups, the groups were asked to, or the members were asked to tell how they were able to move from fear and rage and anger, suffering because of whom they had lost, to working for peace. What happened in their lives that transformed them from angry people to people working for peace. And I'll never forget Anna. Anna said, even though my dad didn't want me to do this, I had to be with my mother. And the only way I could be with my mother was to work the same work. So she now is engaged in working for protecting land rights in southern Italy. Again, I wondered how much you had to do in order to be living with those whom you love. How much danger do you have to face after such a loss? 24 years old, Anna. Then 15 years ago, as Marita said, I joined the Christian Peacemaker Team's CPT, an international peace team dedicated to building a partnership with people to transform violence and oppression. In 2007, CPT was invited by a young group of people who had come together as a team to work for peace in the Democratic Republic of the Congo. They were eager for a peace accord in their country, and they wanted everyone to be involved nonviolently. We were called to help set up a nonviolent response to the challenges of war there. The inviting team was made up of young university graduates, lawyers, journalists, nurses, teachers who risked their lives for peace in their country. While in the Congo, we learned that women from 9 months old to 90 years old were being raped with impunity. And yet, this group of young graduates were courageous enough to meet publicly as activists for peace in the Congo. And at one of our nonviolence trainings, I met Rebecca, a young woman who attended. After the meeting, she asked if she could see me as I spoke Swahili. And then she told me her story. She and her husband and her 2 children, teenagers, were in the home when the militia broke in. They killed her husband and they forced her to lay down in his blood. And then 12 men raped her. And 1 or 2 raped her teenage daughters. Rebecca was unconscious when the men left. Battered and torn, she spent a long time in hospital. And after much rehabilitation with Synergy, the Congolese women's group set up to help rape victims, Rebecca agreed to appear in court to testify. Very frightening experience. And as a result of her testifying, some months later, 3 men came to visit her, angry that she had testified, which made public their crime. And therefore, they proceeded to rape her. And 1 man put his shoe into her vagina. She cried as she told me her story, and then told of the children that she was keeping, children of rape victims whose families did not want to keep them. So she took them in. At that time, she had 10 babies. We sat for a long time together. And then later we joined our team at lunch. I noticed she put all the food that was left over, bananas, oranges, apples, into her bag. And she quietly explained to me that this is for the children. I need to feed them. And so she took that home. But what astonished me most was as she walked me to the bus, that all the women we met ran over to greet her and to hug her. Every woman seemed happy as she passed through. And I wondered what help, what comfort she must have offered to each of these women, from her own pain, reaching out to others. And maybe that's why they were so happy to greet her and to hug her. I wondered what kept Rebecca going. She'd been torn apart, lost her husband, helped her daughter deliver the baby as a result of the rape, raising these other children. And she's struggling through difficult healing processes and can still believe and hope and reach out to help others. Where was the bitterness, the anger, the hurt, the shame that was caused by these men in her body? What changed her heart? She continues her long journey towards healing. Who even knows her name? What strength do women have to build human solidarity? Later on, in Kurdistan, Iraq, where we work at nonviolence training, I lived and worked with Mona, a woman who was a journalist for an independent newspaper. When she finished school, she wanted to help other women dealing with the challenging traditions of honor killings, as well as female genital mutilation, FGM, in Iraq. She found employment at WADI, an NGO that deals with women and protects their rights. One of her tasks was to travel to remote villages to inform women about their rights and the physical, emotional, and health risks of FGM. Mona believed so strongly in the rights of women, and undaunted by the danger of her work, which involved challenging cultural as well as religious traditional practices, she traveled to the villages. Many families believe that honor in the family must be maintained at any cost. Even in many villages, the mullah declared that the Quran stated that traditions must be maintained regarding honor in the family. And yet she continued her work, visiting remote villages, meeting with women and family, talking about the risks of FGM. In many cases, they just said, get out, leave this village. And she went on then to establish shelters in town to protect women from these honor killings. Again and again, Mona was threatened. She received threatening phone calls. Her family received threatening phone calls. And she continued. And finally, she felt she had no choice to protect her family, and she had to leave the country. She reluctantly left her family and friends and moved and settled in Canada. What cost to a young woman who believes that women have a right to live and make choices about their lives? What a price she paid. She who loved her 8 sisters, her mother, her family, her friends, her job, and moved to a strange country. What was the cost of her courage? Then in Erbil, Iraq, my team was called to accompany a journalist who had been threatened by the government because he was a journalist and was writing about some of the injustices and especially speaking truth to power. His life was clearly in danger. So 2 of us traveled to his home and we stayed with him and his family. And one day in the kitchen, I asked his wife, "Are you afraid?" She said, "No, but I am afraid for my children." And she had 3 little boys. In the evenings, the journalists would ask us to sit outside so that folks we're an international peace team, and we would be more visible in case anyone came to harm them. At night, we slept in the front room with a glass window, and they were able to sleep in more protected back areas. Later, after we returned home, maybe in the next month or so, we were asked to monitor a large demonstration in the stadium in Suleimania where we lived. The area was heavily guarded. Armed police on the rooftops, walking around and sitting. They were prepared for any incident of violence. And I was very surprised to see that journalist at the dais telling of his work and why he's doing it and what was wrong. But even more surprising to me was his wife sitting in the front row with her 3 boys. I began to wonder what price she was willing to pay for justice. The lives of that whole family was in danger, but freedom from oppression and oppressive regimes needed to be sought, and no matter the cost, she was going to pay. The kid, she's ready to pay. And then in refugee camps on the USA southern border, in Lesbos, Greece, and in Mexico, I met with hundreds of our contemporaries who are forced to leave their lands and their families to search for work, to stay alive, to educate their children. Men and women risk their lives to embark on clandestine journeys, only to end up in some hellish detention centers, barely surviving on the periphery of our civilized world. In a refugee camp in Greece, I met Bia from Ghana, who had traveled all the way by herself from Ghana to Lesbos, Greece. And she undertook the journey because danger to her life was so great, it was impossible for her to live in Ghana. One day she told a story of children being belted with straps of ammunition and told to go play in the market. As they played, the ammunition would explode, killing the children and anyone standing close by. In markets, there were always large crowds shopping, so many would die. She couldn't stand the horror, and she took the risk of traveling alone. And in the camp, she sat alone seeking safety, hoping that one day she could get to Athens from Lesbos so she could belong to something, get a job, and have a life with friends. What price do women have to pay in some places of the world just to live a normal life, a life of harmony? Some years ago, CPT was invited by a priest group in a small Tennessee town to join them in a moral and educational crusade to make public the work of a company there, Aerojet Ordnance. Aerojet was using depleted uranium in their productions. And we know DU is a heavy metal that is both radioactive and chemically toxic. As dangerous as this toxic uranium was in that area, the CEO denied the danger, saying, lightly, my company is producing perfume. The Tennessee Peace Group knew what was happening and wanted us to help them make public the horror of the toxicity at Aerojet. We joined them in public protests and demonstrations right across from the facility. We invited TV, media, newspapers, etc. And we were joined by many victims who had worked there and now were ill from the toxicity. And at the demonstration, I met his wife, a young woman, and their 10-year-old daughter. And she told the story of being invited to join him for lunch many times in the summer. And they would sit outside and have their lunch together. She, not knowing anything, used the facilities. She went in to wash her hands, to get water, etc., in the contaminated area. When he realized that she was in that area, he shouted only then, telling her it was contaminated. After a while, she herself became ill. Her young daughter was ill when we met them, and her husband forced her to maintain secrecy about the work at the company. And as soon as she became seriously ill, he divorced her. Then he threatened to kidnap that child, their daughter, if she spoke out about the company. He claimed he had sufficient money to pay for the best lawyers. He would win that case. This daughter was his, and she could only keep her if she kept quiet. As the illness progressed, she knew she would never see her daughter graduate from grade school. And yet, after some time pondering, she knew she had to speak out to protect her neighbors and the local people from this contamination. And I wondered, in what part of her soul did she find the courage to speak out now? Who was going to be there to help her? He kept threatening her. And yet she joined us as we met the media and made public the toxic conditions of that company. I'll tell you just one more story. One of the team members I worked with and lived with in Suleimania, Kurdistan is Rina. Rina is Iranian and has lived in Iraq since her family moved from Iran. Her father was a photographer journalist, and he was one day kidnapped and taken into custody because of what he had printed. He was tortured, he lost one arm, and finally was released. Eager to get back to journalism, even with one artificial arm, he went back to work. And later, once again, they came and arrested him and threw him into prison and started torturing him. And this time, after he was released, he knew they had to leave. So he and his family fled Iran to Iraq. Rina, when she arrived in Iraq, heard about the work of the peace team, CPT, and she inquired about joining. She's now an amazing peace worker, Fearless as she speaks publicly in protests, travels to Parliament to talk to the Human Rights Coordination, and documents abuses the local and international press. How is Rena able to advocate for peace? She watches her father struggle with one artificial limb. Her mother struggled to make a life in Iraq. It has been said that our real job today is to lay the groundwork for a deep change of heart on the part of all, so that one day it can really go through the metanoia we need for a just and peaceful world. Is Rena one of the women laying the groundwork? Is her witness of speaking truth to power that will be best and most true in humanity? Is that the sign that is needed? Around the world, I have found that women maintain a constant quest for justice at any cost. What is in their hearts that enables them to keep on keeping on in this struggle? I often wonder if there is a peace space that women claim inside of them and which they use in their daily struggle for justice. This space they discover in themselves, they claim and work for all that is best and true in humanity. You know, violence is rooted in systemic oppression, sometimes religious oppression. Yet the women I have met seem to know how to use creative nonviolence in their struggle to transform these structures of dominance for the renewal of true cultural and spiritual vitality for a much better world. I believe the only really valid thing that can be accomplished in the direction of world peace and unity at the moment is the preparation of the way by people like the women I have mentioned. They're signs of peace, signs of justice. They do much to open the minds of their contemporaries to receive new seeds of thought. They are pioneers, preparing the human family for new possibilities. And as I end my story, I want to say I believe there is a better world ahead for women and for all. And I recently found a very lovely pillow cover that had been a gift from one of my nieces many, many years ago. It reads, "Those who bring sunshine into the lives of others cannot keep it from themselves." Fortunately, I have met many women who cannot keep the sunshine out. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Rosemary.
You're welcome.
And now I want to give you and Munira an opportunity to interact for a few minutes about your hearing one another's presentations and any comments you have for one another.
May I start?
Yes.
Yeah, Munira, I was thrilled to hear you talk about, I put a little bit down here, how it's community people that you felt you had to deal with and bringing a community together because we suffer in community together. And how working together, we enable, we encourage, we empower one another. And that's kind of what I have tried to do wherever I go with the AIDS, certainly with the AIDS patients. I couldn't do it. And I don't want to bring in, I never wanted to bring in money and help from outside. We have to do it because we're the ones left with that challenge in our lives that we share. And so how are we going to meet the challenge? And you gave me a lot of good clues, so thank you.
Thank you, Rosemary. Yeah, there are so many ways that we can tackle the problem. The first thing is acceptance. We have to make the people to accept that we have a problem, and we are the one who can solve the problem. Yes. No one. And also there's need to show them the case study, the dialogue, the interaction, the intervention that we are doing, and the best approach we can do to make them to understand. Especially majority of the community, they are suffering from the stigmatization, you know very well.
Yeah.
They were stigmatization, and also they are afraid by seeing others that what they are going through, like the people who are sick, people to know their problem they have, they don't want to share. But when we build their capacity and empower them and make them to understand that they are the ambassador to others, and that is not you alone that you suffer. There's so many people who are suffering. So you can help the others. So by building them, making them as ambassador, it will help us to do so. Because when I go, me and you, I think that we are imposing something for them, which is not theirs.
Yes.
But when they know that there's need for them to change, as you know, change is a process. It's not a one-day thing. So through the process, we'll make them to embrace the change. Yeah, thank you. And from your presentation, I'll say that what you did was very good thing, and God will reward you. You did a great thing, and also don't stop what you are doing, and don't get discouraged. We need to motivate each other and work together. As the things that you went through, also there is a need for us to have a deep breathing also for yourself, because you are carrying things, still you're working with things that is not yours. Sorry to say so, but we need to take it out all the time so that you can have your life also. You know, as we say, the community worker, self-care is very important for us. We need to live so that we can do more. By carrying things and to see that we are being defeated or we can't do, it's not what we have. Because these things, it goes with the passion that we have and a call from God. So we need to carry it and raise our head that we can do, and still you can do. Thank you, Rosemary, for your presentation. It really inspired me. Yeah, thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you both so much. And now we have a number of questions coming in. Munira, first I'm going to give you, there are several people who have commented on both of you, that how inspiring each of you has been in telling the stories that you have, Rosemary and Munira. Several saying that. And let me see, Munira, Joe Okumo from Nairobi is wondering about the excellent, first of all, he's just saying how both of you were really excellent. He's wondering about young men, and they're also having living on the edge of the community and not having a sense of self-identity and such. Is there any help for them, Munira? Or where does this leave men when women are empowered? And
as at the beginning, I talk about we had two circles of the two cohort. The first one, I had was a couple of youth, male, with male. You know, with male, the issues are open because they are staying at the den, they are unemployed, they're unemployed, they're idle, they do so many drug addict. So for them to get them, it was just go pick and bring them so that they can go to the program. Yes, they have the problems, and it's open for them because we know them and count them that they are going through drugs and unemployment and joined so many violence extremism groups. And we did the same program. Unfortunately for the men, sorry to say this, Okumu, the culture of savings, they don't like to save for their future. I think we have to do something for them so that they can own the program. Majority of girls, when I compare girls and boys, for the first time, I thought boys, they have so many issues than girls. But for the girls, they're underneath. You have to bring it out. But for the boys that are open, we know the problems. So it's high time for us, when we sensitizing the community, important and the culture of savings for the boys, and also important them to accept the process. You know, for the girls, they have the family, they're taking care of the family. As you know, nowadays, so many men abandon their family. There's a lot of divorcees, a lot of single parents, a lot of early marriage and early pregnancy. So these things accumulate in one place or a family with different issues that concerning them that make them not to move. The school dropout, everything, the poverty index, everything. For them to speak out, it is not good. They feel shy, they shy away from the larger group because they don't want to speak out. So you can see and feel that they have a problem, the stigmatization problem that we have in our community. The finger that we point each other, that you know her, you know who, you know. So that makes the girls to back off. But for the boys, we can see them to their dens. When I talk about one of ask about the maskani. Maskani is that it's a den where a majority of youth are staying there. It's a Swahili social place where they're staying, doing their things, but majority of those who stay there, they're unemployed and idle youth, who their mindset is the same. They can't change their mindset. They have hopeless life in their life. So for the boy, we have also the program, the first program I did, and also in the which I share with you, Marita, there is a boy who stood there that was my mentee, the community researchers for the first cohort. Then he graduated to be one of the successors, and we managed to put him as a second champion for the second. So we have different boys who are ready to change. Not all boys want to change, Okumu, not all. Some do, but some, they hate the long process. They hate the process. They don't want changes to take long. They want a faster and quick reaction to what they want. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you so much, Munira. There are a number of comments and questions here. Rosemary, one of the questions has to do with how do you support yourself, having witnessed so much suffering in so many places around the world? What enables you to keep going and to open yet again to suffering?
Thank you. Thank you for that sensitive question. You know, I work with a team. When I'm as a Maryknoll sister, I've always worked with other sisters in the house with me, whether we're doing the job alone or together. There's always sisters at the table. And if the team is the same, Always there's, when I was with that young journalist in his house, I was with a team member, a young man. And, we shared a lot. I was afraid they might throw a stone in that big window, and he was afraid they were going to throw in a hand grenade. So he had fears as well, but we could share and we could travel together. So I also do pray. I need to include these suffering people in my life prayer. So that helps me. It gives me some strength. I find sometimes it's difficult to sleep. It's hard when people are suffering around me for me to go about, in a jolly mode of life. But the Christian Peacemaker Teams does have a wonderful pastoral team. And we meet maybe once every second month over a cup by Zoom with a cup of tea. And we do little rituals of healing. So it's built in, it's certainly built in at Maryknoll. We do have rituals of healing, rituals of prayer. Life is what it is for people. And so our lives, if we're going to share, are also going to be lives that will be a bit bumpy. And we wouldn't want it any other way if we're really in solidarity with people.
Thank you, Ro. And here's another question for you, Munira. One more question for each of you. Has being part of, Mary Ryan is asking, she's an affiliate and she wonders if being part of the Maryknoll affiliates has helped you in your work. Maryknoll Kenyon affiliate chapter.
Yes, to me, it has helped me a lot with so many opportunities. And also we have, there's a time when they're coming to Kenya, we have the safe space that we talk about our issues. And also when we have programs through the Zoom, and also we share so many things, activities, I think it helps us to give us also information, what is going on around other places, apart from Kenya and others. And also we share, it connecting me and also build my networks with other Maryknoll sisters and brothers. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Munira. And Ro, about the immigration issues south of the border, you've gone there and you spoke of the long journey people make on behalf of their families and to have a sense of safety, and then these awful detention places where they're kept. Could you say a little bit more about any aspect of the current migration issue that you wish to comment on?
I think when I worked in Lesbos, Greece, and I worked in a Moria camp, that left a deep impression on me, deep. It was so hard for people, so difficult. I would say here in the United States and in Mexico, where I have worked, I think difficult for the safety of the immigrants, like in Agua Prieta in Mexico, the drug cartel was surrounding us. So we had to protect them from the drug cartel. And then I worked in Tucson in Casa Alitas, where they would be coming in by busloads. But there we had the chance, we do have the chance to welcome people. And maybe it's very small chance because they're going to be moving on. But I saw again and again, I saw there that we did have our chance. Unfortunately, there were also some awful, maybe people shouldn't be in those jobs, or maybe maybe some of the Border Patrol need to, the one Border Patrol officer who was upset about something said we need to learn more about compassion. And maybe that's what causes, it's those who cause the horror, who maybe need to go to another job or to, but I have to say that I had a niece who came to see me when I was working with No More Deaths and wrote about it. And she decided at that time she needed to be studying law. And she is today an immigration lawyer working at the border in El Paso, Texas. So I leave him a lot so down there.
Thank you so much. Well, unfortunately, we've run out of time. There are many comments here praising each of you for your courage, for your ability to communicate with people, to be with people, and their level, and for your courage and your creativity, your amazing resourcefulness. So I want to thank you on behalf of everyone who's watching, and actually others will visit the site and watch. That's been our experience, that many people come to the site after the program. And one more thing I want to say is that while we will not have our usual program of 2 speakers, 2 women leaders, we will have one more program, and I'm not sure exactly when it will be. It will link the Voices of Women to the February conference. And our speaker is Aza Karim, who is the Secretary General of the organization Religions for Peace. She's very heartfelt visionary. So I'll be able to let you know about that ahead of time. But right now, let us each bow in gratitude to these 2 unusual women and for the witness they have each given us. Thank you.
Thank you.